Good morning, Gordon. What we're going to do this morning is replace the boots on the rear axle half of a 123 Mercedes. It'll work on either actually a 123 or 126. Both the axle halves are the same. What happens is these rubber boots eventually split open after 15 or 20 years, and so you need to replace the rubber boot, but the axle half is still good. So we've already removed this one, and we showed another film how to get this axle half off. But once we get the axle half off, we've got to replace these two boots. I recommend replacing them both at once because you can see they get cracked. Both boots are cracked here. And of course the grease leaks out, and then the boot is going to be destroyed unless you replace it, or the joint's going to be destroyed unless you replace the boot. We got kits. We've got a kit, one kit each end. So we've got a kit that has the can, the rubber boots, the grease, seals, clamps, everything that we need to replace this one. And then to replace that one, all we need is just to slide the boot over. But in order to replace this one, we have to pull this whole assembly off, and of course that's where all the work is. In order to slide this boot on this shaft, we're going to have to pull this one. Now we're going to follow the procedure as outlined in the kits that we got from MercedesSource.com, and this fellow publishes a little booklet, and we're going to follow his procedure and film it. He also, with the booklet, of course, you get the kits. So we recommend that you buy the kits from him. The fellow's name is Kent Bergsma of Bergsma Motorworks, and so we're going to film his procedure for removing these things. And that's where you can get a source for the kits. And he also sends a special little crimping tool along with it, which is necessary if you don't have all of the Mercedes jigs and so forth that are required. The very first thing that you do is you grind off the inner can. This is the one that goes toward the differential. Now his procedure is different than the one in the Mercedes book. The Mercedes book says to take off this can and this joint and then slide this off. And Mr. Bergsma does it the opposite way. It really doesn't make much difference. But if you get his kit and his procedure, he does give you this can, which has a slightly different size than this can. So you got to be careful. With his procedure, you need to first remove this joint instead of this joint. The very first thing you need to do, other than just some standard hand tools and that crimping tool, you need a grinder. The rest of it is fairly straightforward. The first thing you have to do is grind off the lip on this can, and we're going to go do that outside because it makes a real mess. So we're going to grind this lip off all the way around so that this can will come off of here. Now, I took this thing outside, and I finally got it all the way through. And you got to be careful when you take this thing apart, obviously. Pay attention to those balls, as Ken says. But I finally got that thing ground all the way through, and I did wash out this pan because that's what I ground it in. Now, the can actually holds all this together, and so we're going to have to be real careful when we take these balls out. For each one of the spider splines, there are two ball bearings, and as we start, this thing will just come right apart, you see. So those ball bearings need a place to fall. There are two each, 6 of them all together. Now we're going to assemble that back, but you notice there's a seal on each end. There's a rubber O-ring on this end, and we've got a new one in our kit from Mr. Bergsma. And there's also a seal on this end that's sealed to that. Now, of course, the process destroyed that thing, but we're going to replace it all. Now, the only thing really left to do before we start assembling back is we've got to get what's called the hub off of the end of the shaft. But you want to be very, very careful to mark exactly the position of this hub on this shaft, so that when we put it back, we get it exactly in the same spot. And by that I mean this way. We don't want it too far on the spline or too far this way, because if we do, it changes the entire position of, you know, the way the splines might match up to both the differential and the wheel. So you got to be very careful about that. Now, before I do that, I'm actually gonna take some cutters and cut this clamp off so that I can get this whole thing off. This one was the one that was split, but you see the can has been cut right here. So I need some cutters to get that off. I'm just going to cut this clamp off of there. It's got a regular pair of dikes so that I can get that. And now I need a screwdriver, razor blade or something to pry it away. You see, I just want this thing out of the way, basically, and I could probably cut it. I got it loose there. I just want a real accurate mark. Let's go there. Okay, I can get it now and slide it back out of the way. Now this is the thing that I want to mark, and I want to mark it in such a way that I get both actually positions. I want it exactly in the same position on the shaft, and I want it exactly the same distance that way. So I need to mark it in such a way that I get it back perfectly. Now, I put a real accurate mark. I put a paint mark for one thing, and then I also just scratched a mark. I don't know if you can see it, but it's over here. Right along that spline, I did it with a little bitty file, just so I could have a good reference point. And one of the things that you need to be aware of is there's a bumper on the end of this shaft. Let me take it off of there and show you. Right on the end of the shaft there's a rubber bumper, and so the other end of the hub bumps up against that as the thing moves. Well, you have some alternatives for getting this hub off the shaft. One way is to put a puller on there, but you'll destroy that little rubber bumper. But the little rubber bumper is kind of hard to get off. Another way to get this hub off of there is just to drive it off of there if you've got a big vise where you can hold it. And there is a rib on this shaft that'll kind of hold this thing in position like that. And so what I'm doing is just avoiding having to take that rubber bumper out of there and just tightening it up in a vise real tight and taking just a drive pin so that I don't hurt these splines and just driving the beast off of there, and I've almost got it off. And now, of course, I know exactly how to get it back on. So there it is. It's off, and I can put it back in precisely the same position because I've marked it very accurately. So now I'm in a position to take both the things off of there, that one, and then of course I'm going to do this one. But we don't take this can off. We can now get this particular boot off also by just cutting it. Okay, I cut the cans off, and then I just make myself a little bigger hole.
The clamps?
I'm sorry, I took the clamps off the rubber boot, and now I just cut that so it makes it easier to slide off. There we go. Okay, so now you see I've also got a mess. But I haven't taken this joint apart. I want to be very careful to leave that joint in place. And of course all of the grease came out of there. So with the kit comes some more grease, and we're going to replace the grease in the thing. And also we're going to put the boot on there. So the boot is here. So I can put the boot on the shaft and get it in position, and hold it up, dump the grease in there, and put the clamps down. So this is the rubber boot that slides on this side. Oops, the clamp is already clamped down a little too tight. Now there's a little reference mark for you. There's a little lip, and I want to put the boot right up against the lip eventually. So actually what I'll do is go ahead and clamp this side down, and then I'll pour the grease in there and clamp the other side down. Now we squeeze that entire tube of grease into the outer shaft, the outer axle, and now we just gotta get it straightened out and tighten that clamp. Get it over the edge there. It's got a little lip on it. My hands are all greasy, so it's kind of hard to get it over the edge there. I might have to move the clamp in order to get it. You can see that that's going to be a little stubborn. Now I've got it slipped on. Actually, I put it up in a vise. These particular clamps, this one anyway, doesn't screw down. It's one of those factory type clamps, and what I do is take a big pair of pliers and grab that lip, and you see I can move it that way. Now I've got it plenty tight because there's a bead around there that it slips over, so that's fine. So I got the grease in there, and now that one's all repaired. Now you got to be careful. You're going to be sorry if you're not. You want to put these things back on in order. So the very first thing we do is put a clamp on here. Then this boot, it's going to slide up to that little abutment there, that little mark on the thing eventually on the shaft. So that's a good reference point. The boot goes on, then the large clamp. Then we're going to put this on. We're just going to slide it on there. We're not going to seal it up right now because we're going to pour the grease into this joint through that opening eventually. Now we're going to get the hub on, and we're going to be very careful to make sure that our marks line up. Now those are our marks with regard to the right spline position, and in addition we're going to drive it on there right up to that little mark we put right there on the shaft. Now we're going to have to be careful to drive it on there, and I'm going to get some kind of a wooden tool, clamp this vise down real hard and drive it on there up to the place where my mark is. So let me get a block of wood. I'm going to have to be careful because the shaft goes on farther, so I've got it somewhat there, but you can see I've got a little ways longer to get to my mark. Now we've got this joint all together, and what we're going to do is take it apart again so we can show you how we did it with two people. In his book, Mr. Berkshire recommends that you put 4 of those steel bearings in there and then whack this end of it to get the last 2 in. But we're going to show you an alternative procedure where you can snap the last 2 balls in there, but the last 2 ball bearings, but we're going to have to set our camera up and show you how to do this with 4 hands. So surely you have someone who can help you with this. It'll only take a few minutes, and we'll show you. So first we're going to take the joint apart, and it comes apart. It's a lot easier than it goes together. So the very first thing is to get two two in there, and the bottom two, as Mr. Berkshire says, are the easiest two to start with. So you get bottom two, you get two adjoining in there.
Here we go.
All right. Okay, now we've got.
Get me to do it.
Yeah, we're going to get our fourth one in there right now. So we got 2, 3.
Two bottom ones in, right?
So the two bottom ones are in.
And you kind of rock it back and put
The two that effectively are on the side.
the side ones in. They're rocking it back. Okay, this is the tricky part. Have one person hold the four bottom ones and then rock it back. And bring the top forward. The top ones will just pop in.
There. So now, with two people, you got all 6 of them in there. Pushed this back out of the way. And now the next thing we're going to do is put all of our seals in there. And we've got to pay particular attention. There's one seal that goes over this. And goes inside there. And then there's an O-ring seal, and the O-ring seal is, the new O-ring seal goes right there. Now, you got to make sure that this is all pretty clean, and we better wipe that. There. So this new O-ring seal, we're going to put right in there where the old one was. And then we're going to put this piece over that. And then the last thing is we're going to crimp that. Now, Mr. Berkshire has included a special tool that he developed to crimp that without having to use the factory crimping press that is a Mercedes tool. And rather than show that and reveal Mr. Berkshire's secret, we're going to go ahead and use his tool so that at least you order the kit from him. But he has a special tool that he uses, and we're going to use it too, to crimp this to that, and we've got all of our seals in place. So we'll do that and come back with our camera work to show you the very last bit, which is just to clamp this down. But first, of course, we're going to put the grease in there. Okay, we used Mr. Bergsma's tool. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Mr. Bergsma. We used his tool. You can see what a nice job it did. We crimped that down all the way around. And so we've got that done, and now the last thing is just to put the grease in there and then put the clamps down. So we got a couple of little sacks of grease in this case for this side. We'll put that in there, put that clamp on there, and we'll be done. There. Now we're going to slide this boot over that lip. There. It kind of popped on there. And now this one, as you recall, goes down just past that little ridge right there. And then we need this piece. Loosen this clamp, it's a little